All right, good morning. It is August 12th, 2025, and we have a lot of fun people here this morning. Good morning, everybody. We are reading in the Habits of Health. We have one page before we hit 1.5. So we're going to read Doug Wood's story. I was not born in a healthy household. I thought the only way to lose weight was through exercise. The problem was that it wasn't working. Even though I was gaining muscle, my waistline seemed to be growing, and the frustration began to build. After trying countless diets, I reached a point to where I thought I was cursed. I was always going to have fat genes, and nothing was ever going to change. One of the micro habits that has been so important to me was healthy motion and exercise. I thought that health meant I needed to be skinny, but it's actually building health and fitness. And that has been the biggest difference that the habits of health have made to my life. One of the key things that has helped me thrive in my health over the last 8 years is being part of the healthy community and really changing my surroundings. Something the habits of health taught me was really to introduce a whole new set of habits, which can sometimes include our peer group and the places that we go. I knew that if I wanted to stay healthy, I needed to be around people who value their health as well. Doug Wood also read a great personal development book, Church Boy to Millionaire. If you ever have a chance, that's a pretty incredible book. He's one of our coaches. That's a rock star. All right, so we are on part 1.5, the bedrock of transformation, successful habit installation. Have you ever made the decision to start doing something differently or to put a new habit in your life? And when you did you make a commitment to yourself that this time you're going to stick to it? Yes. A week later, you realize that you are no longer doing it at all. You're not alone. I've done it myself many times in the past. It begs the question, why is it so hard to stick to our goals and form good habits? Simpler still, why is change so hard to achieve? In reading this book, you may have thought that you really want to be healthier and improve your overall life, yet it seems so hard to make any progress. All I can do is say it again. It depends on you. I'm putting it all back on you because the most important piece in actually creating the sustainable transformation of your weight, health, and well-being is the development of your own ability to take ownership of your choices. I put in there becoming. That became my word in 2023, becoming. This capability comes from the mastering the ability to create a series of small, sustainable changes in your daily choices that will, over time, create long-term change. These are the small daily habits that we'll talk about in this part. Very important, small, they've got to be doable. That's why we use fuelings. They're so easy. They allow us to do other things. So 17th century poet John Dryden described how powerful habits are in determining our life. We first make our habits, then our habits make us. So have you heard Octavian say that over and over and over again? Modern day neuroscience supports Dryden's 300-year-old observation. Our brain processes over 10 million bits of information each second, and yet of these, only 50 bits are developed at a conscious level. Is that crazy? We are, for good or ill, biological machines, and our interaction with the world works best when we keep things simple. It leaves less room for chance, mistakes, or breakdown. We are operating on automatic almost all of the time. 10,000 years ago, automatic behavior was imperative to our survival. Without it, our voluntary behaviors could have results in injury or death. Today, automatic behaviors lead us down the pathways that are not in our best interest. These behaviors are really out of place in this far more complex world. Without the conscious programming, which I will help you begin, you will find yourself out of sync with modern conditions, and you'll be on a trajectory towards habits of disease. Unfortunately, if you are not taking responsibility and programming your choices and habits, your brain will do it for you under the influence of a range of forces, from technology to the company we keep. And you won't even know it. It always comes back down to awareness, mindfulness, and preparedness. We won't even know it. If this seems far-fetched, let me share some disturbing facts. Almost 79% of all smartphone users check their devices within 15 minutes of waking up. A 2011 study suggests that people check their phone 34 minutes a day on average. However, industry insiders believe that this number is actually much closer to a whopping 150 checks from morning to night. Technology, unimpeded advancements might well drive us to extinction, much like climate change finished the dinosaurs. This is happening alongside the catastrophic epidemic of obesity and the increase in diabetes, two significant human events that have been propagated by energy-dense foods, a progressively more sedentary lifestyle, and a psychological impact, and the result in isolation and stress. Initially, I hadn't even considered technology role as a part of the broader problem, but it is short-circuiting even our most fundamental behaviors. I read in a recent survey that a full third of Americans say they would rather give up sex than lose their phone. Now that I have your attention, let's unpack how we are going to eliminate the hidden forces that negatively affect your health and life and start the process of putting you in charge. I need to help you use the power of habits to create the life you want versus accepting that your life is what everybody else wants for you. We will start with understanding how habits are formed, how they operate, and how you can be a professional level habit installer. I'll also show you how to adjust the ones that need tweaking and eliminate the effects of those that are not in your best interest. Vince Lombardi, one of the greatest American football coaches, believed in starting from the beginning. At the start of a new season, he gathered his team, held a pigskin in his right hand, and said, "Gentlemen, this is a football." He started from scratch. And so will we. We need to leave nothing to chance. As you develop one of the most important tools and determinants of your life. What is a habit? Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary defines habit as an acquired mode of behavior that has become nearly or completely involuntary. A behavioral pattern acquired by frequent repetition or psychological exposure that shows itself in regularity or increased facility of performance. Wow. In psychology, the definition goes a little deeper. A habit can be thought of as a link between a stimulus and a response. It serves as a mental connection between a trigger, thought, or event, stimulus, and our response to that trigger, the response. Repeating this connection time and again forms a habit and affects all subsequent decisions and actions. If repeated often enough, this connection becomes near permanent unless we take conscious action to change it. Work in physiology comes out of MIT in the late 90s, revealing that the underlying structure of habits and broadened our understanding of how they are formed. The work also offered clues as to how they run our lives. We all live mostly by habit, said Anne Graybill, professor of neuroscience at MIT. Habits and automatic learning responses, such as those used in driving and bike riding, may serve to free up the thinking parts of the brain for more creative purposes. Same thing with the fuelings. They're grab and go mindless so that we have the time to think about changing our identity and becoming a healthy person. Graybill, sorry, side note there. I did not read that. Mm-hmm. Graybill began exploring and expanding the idea of habit loops. And these seem to be the key to habit formation. A region deep in the brain called the basal ganglia was identified as the region responsible for building the automated behaviors that became known as the habit loop. Charles Duhigg popularized the idea of the habit loop with a visual diagram to show how habits are formed. The basic habit loop has 3 pieces: cue, routine, reward. Right there. First, there is a stimulus called a cue. This tells your brain to select certain previously developed behavior and then activate an automatic sequence of actions. It's like scrolling through your playlist and clicking the song you want to play from a selection you downloaded to your smartphone. Second, there is an action or a routine that can be physical, mental, or emotional. This is activated by the cue and is the behavior or the routine. This is the behavior or habit that can, over time, become automated. That's all of our reaction. Like when we grab something to comfort us for 2 seconds before it really makes us feel worse, it's just cue, routine, reward. Routine, reward. So you have that cue. Oh my gosh, I'm feeling like this. You grab a candy bar and you eat it, and for 2 seconds it feels really good. And then for the next day, you're beating yourself up for eating it. So we gotta see the end in mind. I love that Jen always teaches that. You've got to see, go from that few seconds of, oh, that candy bar soothed me, to the end in mind. Oh, but when I'm done with that candy bar and I have no more. So, wow, I totally got off there. Let's see, where was I? Your reward is to have your curiosity. No, I think I'm up here. And finally, there is a reward, a benefit that reinforces why the behavior or routine should be repeated in the future. Since most of us own a smartphone, let's use texting as an example of how a simple habit loop is created and then perpetuated. You receive a push notification through a visual, auditory, or vibratory cue or trigger. Your action or routine is to open the text and read its contents. Your reward is to have your curiosity satisfied, to benefit from the information, or feel social acceptance. Did you guys realize that those are things that you get when you open a text? Are you even aware of that? Before I started reading this, I wasn't even aware of that was some of the rewards. Your reward is having your curiosity satisfied, to benefit from information, or feel social acceptance. You are now cued to respond to the same event next time, and so you repeat the loop. The first text you received required your attention to open and respond to it, but I imagine that now you do it without even thinking about it. It has become a habitual habit and behavior. This man-made habit loop is already deeply embedded across millions of people. It has become so highly addictive that we lost a proper sense of what is important. Families no longer talk at dinner. Friends no longer have focused uninterrupted conversations. And the need to respond is creating almost total disregard for very real risk that come from distractions at the wheel of a car. Kind of crazy. And I will tell you, several years ago, Justin Prince trained us, well, probably 7 years ago. And it was really hard to turn off notifications. I don't have any notifications on. The only thing I have on is a ringer. If you have to get a hold of me, you better call me. And I go to my notifications. I go to my emails. I go to my, all of those things when I go there. Now, I get to go there a little bit more often than some of them that work because that is my job. So I go to those specifically when I go to those. That was a very hard thing to do. I remember that. And I remember teaching others that because you will live in such chaos if you're just chasing those dings. Okay, there's another little rampage of mine. The good news is we're going to use this loop for your benefit in installing the habits of health. We will use a system that makes installing your new habits of health predictable, easy, and so empowering. Much of what we will discuss over the pages ahead has only become fully understood and validated in the last decade with the help of neuroscience, interpersonal neurobiology, group and individual coaching, and lots of observational experiences. And I want to make one more comment about turning off my notifications. Over the last 7 years, there's probably 3 times that I wished I'd had my notifications on so that I could respond. That's it. It did not kill me. The Habits of Health transformational system takes the fundamentals out, the fundamentals of that knowledge and blends it with the experience I have had in directly transforming thousands of lives over the last decade. The key to your success is dependent on learning and using the Habits of Health installation system and systematically staying on the path to optimal health and well-being. At the core of our system is the very basic behavior of selecting your desired habit and consistently using that new healthy behavior until it is fully automated, nudging the equilibrium of your life. Your body, mind, and surroundings are in a state of equilibrium based on the life you have created for yourself. It may have happened by chance, but you have also been involved by making choices that have set the current behaviors that guide your life, what you are currently eating, when and how you're moving, the time and quality of your sleep, how you're acting and performing at work and playing, your patterns of socializing, and even the way you think. I'm glad he said that because I was going to say it if he didn't. Even the way you think are all set in a pattern and driven by routine. If we want to change it, we've got to change it. It won't happen. When you go to change a routine, you are disrupting one or more of these forces. When that occurs, the forces of habit will always want to pull you back into equilibrium. In order to create transformation rather than just temporary change, we will use the only sustainable mechanism for change to build a series of habits of health. We are going to make it really easy. How long will it take to install a habit of health? You may have read that it takes on average of 21 days to install a new habit. That number came from a book written by a surgeon who observed that after a limb amputation, it would take approximately 21 days to adjust to the change. That's certainly interesting, but it hardly applies to what we are about to do. The science of change has advanced significantly in the past couple of decades, and work coming out of University College of London shed light on the variability of habit installation. It was suggested that the time necessary for installation depends on the complexity of the desired behavior. Something as simple as drinking an additional glass of water may take as little as 18 days to install, while something as complex as interval training or marathon may take several months. The research concludes that most habits can be installed on average about 66 days. Additional research on time to habit installation has shown that ability, motivation, and environment are all variables that can affect how long it takes to learn a new habit. Ability, motivation, and environment are all variables to a new habit installation. Each individual habit of health will take effort to start and become a routine, but the investment will pay off because you will only need to do it once for each habit installation. Using an illustration, we can visualize the relationship between the time and the effort required for habit installation. In the beginning, it takes some self-discipline and time before the habit goes from being hard and requiring focus and attention to the point where it becomes easier and eventually automatic. Once you reach this point, it becomes much easier to perform the habit. Once the brain has been rewired, your new synaptic connections will endure with almost no attention. They will continue to fire up on a daily basis. This is when your equilibrium starts to shift you towards a healthier state. In addition, each new habit of health installation makes it easier to install the next, known as the halo effect. Each new learned behavior builds momentum as your brain and mind starts growing and expanding, moving out of mindless thinking and instead awakening the desire, capacity, and ability to create what it is focusing on. The creation of better health, which is the process, creates a healthier, more responsive brain. And here's the little picture. Time to habit install. Steep and hard, then it flattens out and gets easy on average of about 66 days. You can see the steep part on the side there, and it goes up and then it levels out because it just becomes what we do. Others have described 3 psychological phases of the ritual of habit installation for more difficult habits that are counter to our natural tendency. This thinking addresses the mental and emotional challenges of disrupting an established routine, but I think it has some merit in summing up the amount of discipline you will need to move through the installation. Phase 1, first third, you want to quit. Just saying. Phase 2, second third, you are adjusting and it's becoming easier. Phase 3, last part, you are really getting it and it is becoming progressively easier. The takeaway message is that you will sense the transition when the habit moves from requiring all of your attention and feels uncomfortable to the moment when you sense you are on the downhill leg and behavior becomes automatically with little effort and no conscious thought. As my grandfather always said, when we face a challenge, this too will pass. Having walked through some of the more fundamental thinking on habits and changing routines, let's explore a few ways to make the task easier and reduce the effort it takes to perform.